In a quiet coastal village surrounded by the rhythm of waves and whispering winds, there lived a teenage girl named Amara. She was known throughout the village for being polite, obedient, and always doing what was expected of her. Whether it was her grades, the way she dressed, or the people she spoke to, Amara followed the path others laid out for her. Her teachers praised her for her discipline, her neighbors admired her for her manners, and her parents proudly introduced her as the perfect daughter. But deep inside, Amara felt like a stranger in her own skin. Every day she wore a mask, smiling when she didn't feel like it, agreeing when she wanted to speak out, and staying silent when her heart screamed to be heard. She had dreams, wild, colorful dreams of painting, writing stories, and traveling to unknown places. But each time she brought them up, someone would say, "That's not practical," or "It's better to do what's safe." So she buried those dreams, convincing herself that maybe others were right. One rainy afternoon, after another day of following instructions and pretending to be someone she wasn't, Amara sat by the window of her room. Her sketchbook lay unopened on her desk, covered in dust. She hadn't drawn anything in months. Her favorite book was still marked at the same page she had stopped reading weeks ago. She stared at the rain streaking the glass, and for the first time in a long while, she whispered to herself, "Who am I really?" She didn't have an answer. The next day, her school announced a storytelling competition. The topic, "What makes you unique?" The announcement stirred something inside Amara. She thought of entering but quickly brushed it off. "People expect me to be smart, not creative," she told herself. "What if I write something weird? What if they laugh?" Still, the thought lingered like a soft melody she couldn't ignore. That night, she opened her dusty sketchbook. Instead of drawing, she began to write. The words poured out, clumsy at first, then like a river breaking through a dam. She wrote about a girl who lived in a village just like hers, who smiled for others, but never for herself. A girl who slowly discovered that being herself, with all her quirks and passions, wasn't a weakness but her greatest strength. She didn't stop writing until dawn. When she finished, Amara read her story aloud. Her voice trembled at first, then grew steady. It felt like speaking the truth for the first time. For once, she wasn't trying to be what others expected. She was just being her. The morning light filtered through her window as Amara stared at the pages she had written. She had never felt this kind of clarity before, like she had been holding her breath for years and was finally learning how to breathe. But with clarity came doubt. What if no one understood her story? What if her teachers thought it was too personal, too raw? Still, something inside her told her to submit it. Not for the prize, not for praise, but for herself. She folded the pages carefully and submitted them to her literature teacher without telling anyone. She didn't mention it to her friends, her parents, or even her closest cousin. This was something private, something sacred. For once, she wasn't seeking approval. The days passed slowly. Students buzzed about the competition, discussing whose story was the funniest or the most emotional. Amara stayed quiet. Her nerves grew louder with each passing day. At night, she would lie in bed replaying every word she had written, wondering if she had revealed too much. Then came the day of the results. Her class gathered in the school auditorium, where the principal and teachers were set to announce the winners. Amara sat in the back row, hands clenched, heart pounding. She told herself she didn't care about winning. She just hoped no one would mock her. When the teacher stepped onto the stage, he held up a paper and smiled. "This year," he said, "we received many incredible entries. But one story stood out for its honesty, its courage, and its message. A story that reminded us what it means to be truly yourself." Amara's heart froze. He continued, "The winner is Amara Devi from class 10. Gasps filled the room. Heads turned. Amara blinked in disbelief. Her name echoed in the room again. She stood up slowly, her legs trembling. As she walked toward the stage, she felt every eye on her, not in judgment, but in recognition. Her teacher handed her the certificate and whispered, "That was one of the most beautiful things I've ever read. Thank you for sharing it." Amara looked out at the audience. Her friends smiled, some clapped shyly. Her parents in the second row looked stunned but proud. But what mattered most was how she felt inside. She wasn't pretending, she wasn't performing, she was simply being real, and it felt powerful. After the ceremony, students gathered around Amara, congratulating her and asking how she had written something so honest. Days turned into weeks, but something had shifted permanently inside Amara. She no longer waited for the world's permission to feel proud of herself. She began to explore more of what she truly enjoyed. She returned to her sketchbook, painting vibrant scenes inspired by her dreams. She wrote short stories about girls who traveled, who failed, who found courage, and who learned to love their flaws. Her transformation wasn't loud or dramatic, it was quiet and steady. She didn't suddenly become the most popular girl or win every competition, but she no longer feared being misunderstood. She stopped saying yes when she meant no, and slowly, she found a circle of friends who appreciated her, not for how perfect she pretended to be, but for how authentic she truly was. One afternoon, while working on a new story at the library, her literature teacher approached her. "I've been reading your latest writings," he said. "Have you ever thought of publishing a collection?" Amara looked up in surprise. "Me?" "Yes, you," he smiled. "Your words have something rare. Truth." That evening, Amara sat in the garden behind her house, notebook in hand, heart full. She thought about how scared she had been to share her first story, how close she had come to never submitting it. And now, here she was, not chasing someone else's idea of success, but walking her own path, slowly, intentionally, joyfully. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. She remembered a line she once read in a book. The most beautiful thing you can be is yourself. And now, she finally understood what that meant. Weeks passed, and Amara's quiet strength became something others started to notice. Not because she was trying to impress, but because she radiated a different kind of presence. The kind that comes from someone who is no longer at war with herself. She laughed more freely, spoke more confidently, and didn't shy away from expressing her real thoughts. Her classmates began approaching her, not just for help with writing, but to share their own stories, struggles they had kept hidden, dreams they had dismissed as childish. Amara listened without judgment. She had been there. She understood how heavy it felt to live as someone you're not. In one of her new stories, she wrote, "Being yourself is the bravest thing you can do in a world that teaches you to be like everyone else." Her parents too began to see a change, not in her grades, though those improved, but in her eyes, in her voice, in how she carried herself. One evening her mother asked, "You seem lighter, more alive. What changed?" Amara smiled and said, "I stopped hiding." Her journey wasn't without setbacks. There were moments of doubt, days when she felt uncertain, but she no longer tried to erase those feelings. Instead, she wrote about them, sketched them, lived through them. Each one added another layer to who she was becoming. It wasn't about arriving at some perfect version of herself. It was about allowing the real version to grow, to breathe, to exist without apology. Because being yourself isn't a destination, it's a decision you make every single day. Months later, Amara found herself sitting at the same window where this journey had begun, where rain once fell on a dusty sketchbook, and silence filled a room that was too heavy with unspoken dreams. But this time, the window was open. A warm breeze danced through her hair, and her desk was no longer empty. It was filled with notebooks, paintbrushes, letters from readers, and the scattered mess of a girl fully alive. She thought about how much had changed, not because she tried to become someone new, but because she had the courage to return to who she had always been. The real her. The girl who saw stories in quiet moments. The girl who painted emotion without needing to explain it. The girl who didn't always fit the mold, and no longer needed to. She remembered every version of herself that had once tried to fit in, tried to stay quiet, tried to earn love through performance. And she thanked them, because even those versions were part of the journey that led her here. Her life hadn't magically become perfect, but it had become real, and real was more than enough. As she closed her notebook for the evening, she looked out at the sun setting over the sea and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." And now, dear listener, as this story draws to a close, there's only one question left to ask. If today was the day you finally decided to be yourself, fully, unapologetically, what would be the very first thing you'd do?